Now, when Titanic sank, as I said before, entrepreneurs were very quick to cash in on all kinds of things. Now, this is a so-called Titanic rivet. It's actually engraved on the top, SS Titanic 1911, lost 14th of April 1912. Now, the gentleman I bought this from, who was an antique dealer, his father bought it for him, and his father was a survivor of Titanic. I didn't know this until I'd sent the check off, and he phoned up to acknowledge the check, and I just happened to say, where did it come from? And it turned out his father actually was a survivor. We have the name, and it checks up with the crew list. So presumably he just bought it to remind himself of how lucky he was to escape. When Titanic sailed, most of her facilities were free, except for things like the Turkish or electric bath. This is an actual ticket from the Titanic to admit the bearer to the bath for 4 shillings, which is 20p, or $1 US. Going down to third class, this is what we think is a butter pat. It's not from Titanic, but it's identical to those used on Titanic. Third class china usually was very poor quality. This is almost like an earthenware. And the same with this coffee pot. Rather large, probably third class, because the first class ones would have been much smaller and much neater. And in all probability, a lot of them were china. But a very nice piece again, same date. Now this beautiful, I think it's a soup tureen, or a sauce tureen, with its ladle, all stamped white star line. It isn't from Titanic, but it is actually dated 1910. So the odds are, well, in fact we know that these were identical to those actually used on the ship. Now this turquoise pattern cup and saucer, is here, actually came from Titanic. They were taken off Titanic during her stay in Southampton by a visitor. I won't say a crew member, I don't know who took it off. But anyway, these two are actually date marked with the Titanic's batch number, as is this piece here. This piece also was taken off. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the cup for it. It's a beautiful thing. It's first class, top quality, Copeland Spode, and all the outside is gold leaf. These items, the same pattern as these items, were retrieved from the bottom of the sea when the French did the dive on her in 1987.
This 80th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic has been really quite extraordinary. There have been thousands of us remembering the Titanic, but in reality, how many of us actually remember her at all? How many of us have actually ever seen her? So what's going on here is not a personal, actual remembrance of the ship, but more of a remembrance of a story, of a myth, of a legend, which has been passed on from person to person, from generation to generation, from year to year. And the interesting thing about that is, while personal memory of an event fades with every passing year, the memory of the Titanic seems to have got stronger and bigger every time it's been retold.
We've come down here to participate, take part in this convention, to take part, as I say, in a bit of history, but to remember it all. And possibly also a time to remember that we shouldn't make such silly comments as unsinkable, but also hearing a lot of what's been going on over the weekend. Perhaps it's high time we stopped looking for someone to blame. We don't want any more mud raking, any more fault finding, and perhaps we don't want the Titanic disturbing anymore, do you think?